Do the math and let the math tell you what to do. And I was like, you cannot fill a full cup, right? If you already know the answer to everything. Well, good morning, and welcome to A Strong Start. We're going to be walking through how to get your time back, how to optimize your energy for your business, and it's going to be great. So if you can see me and hear me, let me know in the chat. All right, so tell me if you've ever been faced with the desire to complete so much in a week, only to arrive at the end of the week wondering where the week went, right? Have you ever just like looked at your to-do list and you compared it to how much time and energy and attention everything takes, and you're just like, there's not enough week. That was last week for you, Annie? All right, good to know. I think you're going to really like today's session. So, by the way, if you didn't catch our prior sessions, I am going to be building from where we started, and I'm going to do something crazy. So, for the past several weeks, I've been walking you through what I call my Let's Launch formula. This is a formula that I've used with brand new entrepreneurs, with established entrepreneurs who want to get more flow happening in their business. And when I say flow, I mean like more leads. I mean more consults, more conversations, and of course, more conversions, right? Shout out an M in the chat if you're like, yeah, I could do with a little more, right? And because the thing is that if you have the right kinds of conversations on the calendar, you're going to have plenty of business as a coach or service provider, all right? So here's what we've been talking about. We've had our Let's Launch formula, and in my first session, I went through everything. So you can find that in the learning tab here in Clients Over Chaos, but stick with me. I'll just go through it real quick. Okay, so the first part we said action. Stop dreaming. Start actioning, right? Get into action. And we broke that down even further. We had a whole session that was all about action taking. And who here remembers the core model for a coaching, expert, consulting kind of a business? Y'all remember that? It starts with an M. It continues on with a T. It keeps going with an F. It keeps going with a C. You see, when I started coaching, I thought, okay, I've got my coaching certification. Where's all the clients at, right? Hey guys, I got my website up, hire me. And I was so like disappointed, frankly, that it took more than the hard work that I had done in my coaching certification to acquire clients. So we talked about meeting people, talking to people, fitting with people, and coaching the people. Does that ring a bell? Right? So shout out a Y in the chat if that rings a bell. The second thing we talked about in action, we said that our success is in our sequence, right? It's the order that we tackle our actions in, right? And the last thing is we talked a lot about motion or momentum, okay? So that was our actionate pillar. Now, not enough, sadly, to just like activate your willpower. We're going to be talking a lot about willpower this morning. Shout a W in the chat if you're like, I just wish that I had more energy for my goals. All right. If that's you, I want to know, because that's me too. I've got 4 kids, right? I got a Chris. He's like full-time job right there. I'm working on my health goals, I'm running a business. I've got new opportunities that I want to go after. So like more willpower would be so nice. Well, before we start talking willpower, which we will talk about today, one of the big things that like 99% of business owners simply just don't do is this second part, which is to track it. Most people, when they sit down to do their business, they're kind of random about it. They're like, well, time to work on my business. And then, they come up with random shit to work on. And what I like to help people with is setting a clear goal for exactly what it is that you want to create, because that's going to dictate the strategy, right? So remember, strategy is the decision making we make about the resources that we have to get the best possible outcome. If somebody caught that, wants to put that in the notes for everybody else, strategy is the decision making that we make with the resources that we have to get the best possible outcome. So the key resources that you have when you're building a coaching business are your time, your money, and your skills, right? As well as your energy. I would say like your emotional energy, the reservoir with which you draw to show up. Because like, let's think about this. If I came to today's session and I was like, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Strong Start. Today, we're going to talk about systems. Oh my God, right? Like you would tune out immediately. And so your energy is a really huge part of your resources. Shout an E in the chat if you hear how important that is. All right. So we need a goal because that's going to help us make the decision about our resources like that fit you, that fit your capacity, that fit your capability, right? And it's based on your particular goal. The next thing we talked about is capturing the appropriate data. All right. So making sure we have the data to tell us, am I on track? Am I off track? Right. And then the most important part is actually to make adjustments. So I'm very proud to say that thank you so much, Annie. That was awesome. So I'm a little disappointed in myself to say, and I got to tell you this. I got to say it because if I don't say it, you might not know it. I was capturing data for a long time without making a single adjustment. Right? I had in my head that I was already ahead of 99% of, other business owners because I like got my dashboards, I got my spreadsheets, I got my data, I got my information, and I would just get like really obsessed with that data. But the problem is I wasn't making adjustments to the plan based on the data. I was still defaulting to what I call the emotional entrepreneur, where if I felt like making a change or it seemed like it would be a good idea to make a change, here's the problem with that, right? Where do you think I was getting my ideas for making the change? Comparison, right? Guilt, shame, desperation. And here's one of the really sneaky ones is that you tend to want to adjust the thing that you already understand really well. And the truth is, there were things that my data was literally showing me were the true gap in my business. And my emotional entrepreneur side was like, I don't want to work on that, right? Like, that's scary. I want to be thought of as smart. Not like I'm smart, right? Like I'm good. I should, that's your big key tell, right? I should have a better result than I have right now. If you've been shoulding all over yourself, friend, the answer is in setting a goal, tracking your real data, and making adjustments. One of my mentors years ago taught me this little phrase, and I love it. He said, do the math and let the math tell you what to do. And I was like, right? And frankly, the answer was scary. It usually meant I had to activate my courage. It usually meant that I didn't know the answer to everything and that I had to be open to learning a new thing. Shout out open in the chat if you happen to be learning on a Monday, right? Because like, that's the whole secret. I was listening to I think Myron Golden yesterday. And one of the things that he said keeps people the most broke or the most stuck is knowing everything. And I'm like, you know what? I had a mentor years ago tell me, Amanda, you cannot fill a full cup, right? If you already know the answer to everything, if you already know, then you're not going to be receptive to the adjustments that will help you to truly achieve your goals. So from then on, I was like, I gotta empty my cup when I go to a learning situation. I got to be willing to receive. Right? So shout an R in the chat if you believe that to be true as well. Okay, last week we had so much fun because I got to tell you as a coach, I'm a little biased on this one. You've got to don't stop believing, right? You got to believe it. Right? Because I can give you the roadmap. I can give you the instruction manual. I can give you the exact scripts. I can tell you how to dress, how to walk, how to talk, how to manage your energy. I can give you the bit by bit, play by play. And if you don't believe it, guess what's going to happen? Right? So we broke this down into a few buckets. And a lot of coaches, myself included till I caught on, right? I'm like, most of what I'm teaching you is because I did a lot of stuff that like was ineffective, didn't work. And then I found a better way and a new way. And that's what I teach you. Is that fair? Right? So the first thing, a lot of coaches believe they already have this level of awareness, right? So being aware of what it is that you believe. Wow. Okay. Just believe me that that word says aware. So, aware is the first part. So, the metaphor that I found really helpful for this is like, it is awfully hard for a fish to see that it is immersed in water. Would you agree with that? Like, if you're already participating in your thoughts, if your thoughts are driving your feelings, they're driving your behaviors, they're driving what you think your identity is, then doesn't it just kind of make sense that it would be really hard to see what that belief might be and that there could be an alternative, right? This is why I'm a big fan of journaling, because if you just, Tony Robbins says, in your head, you're dead. And I totally agree with that. If you keep cycling the same dumb thought over and over and over again, it's going to keep driving the same dumb action over and over and over again. And that's why it's so important to journal, so that you can externalize your thoughts. You can actually see what it is you think you're thinking. Meditation is incredible because what meditation does is it trains your metacognition. Metacognition being the ability to see your thoughts, all right? So your ability to see your thoughts and not necessarily participate in the thought, but rather to be able to observe them. And of course, my super favorite, coaching. Coaching is incredible because when somebody else has a different lived experience, they have training on how to have the coaching conversation, they can help you to see perspectives that you may not actually see on your own. And so I think partnering with a great coach and working with a coach can make a big difference. Now, it's not enough to be aware of your thoughts. Okay, this is where like 90% of coaches, they just stop here on the awareness part because frankly, it does feel really good to have an answer. Like, oh, that's what's making it so hard for me to ask people for a consult. Oh, that's what's scaring the pants off of me when I went to go and do my social media. That's why I don't have any money in the bank account at the end of the month. Whatever your situation is, the conditions, it can feel very satisfying to finally have an explanation, and belief awareness can really help with that. But let me ask you, is knowing enough? Don't forget the other two parts of this, right? It's the action and the traction. So, we want to make sure that we're choosing beliefs that we really do believe in, and we're reinforcing those beliefs that are going to be supportive of our next version of ourselves. So some of the reinforcements, like I said, the journaling, the meditation, and the coaching, but it's also just reminders. So things like having a reminder in your phone, being part of a coaching program, having an accountability partner, all of those things like help you to reinforce the belief. I think one of the most unsung benefits of being in like a more advanced, like high performing program is that the expectation of everybody in the room is elevated. And because of that, it reinforces you having a higher expectation of yourself, which tends to produce better results. Okay, so a belief that's untested is probably not going to be as strong as when you really activate your belief. And this is where I got really stuck. I was telling you earlier today, I was like, I tracked my data for a long time because I believed that tracking the data was enough on its own. But I needed to challenge the belief that tracking data was going to be the differentiator. And I needed to see that it's the adjustments we make because of the data that we see, right? So when we challenge the belief, we get to improve our performance and we get to reinforce. And guess what? When you test a belief that you hold firmly, and you can do that through dialogue, through conversation, through research, through reading. There's so many ways to challenge your belief. Use AI as a thought partner and ask AI to like be contrarian, be bold and push on my assumptions. That kind of thing really helps you to firm up the solid beliefs that are serving you and serving others, and to release the ones that are perhaps holding you back. Okay. That was like a lot to get to. Willpower. Okay, so we've been talking about this let's launch formula, and I'm just going to be totally straight with you. The part where people fall apart is the follow through consistency. Okay, Just shout a Y in the chat if you totally agree. It's like, hey, Amanda, yeah, I know I'm supposed to post on this frequency on social media. Yes, I know. I should probably go networking. I should probably talk to people. I know, right? And you just kind of find yourself in this loop of like, yeah, I know. And here's my loving challenge to you. If you really and truly knew, you would simply do. Somebody write that down in the chat. If I really truly knew, I would simply do. And the truth is, there's still an obstacle in your knowledge. There's still an obstacle in your thinking. There's still an obstacle in your decision making. Because if you really truly knew, you would simply do. It wouldn't be something that we would be discussing anymore because you're like, yeah, I totally get it. Right? Yeah. Cool. I love this. I love this. Okay, so we've got this. And in the engine, you've got a few things. First thing is you have willpower. Willpower is human power. This is when you are using your cognition, your physical self to do a dang thing. All right, so that's willpower. And I actually did some research before today's session because I knew there was a study and I was like, what is that study again? So there was a study done by someone way smarter than me. It was the psychologist Roy Baumeister, and his colleagues. They famously compared willpower to a muscle that can get fatigued after exertion, just like you're running out of fuel. And the idea is that your self-control is actually a limited resource. Have you guys heard this before? Shout out fuel in the chat if you're like, okay, so if I'm a mother of 4 and married to a Chris, that's my husband, and he's a high energy sort, and I have high expectations of myself, do you think I might be using my willpower in a few different places? Right? Sanity being one of them. But I'm just saying, like, I'm probably already, before I come to work, using up willpower. Right? Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite books, and it's one of the best-selling books of all time in our category of personal growth and development, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Required reading if you're somebody who is motivating other people. That's what I think. So, but he cited the same study, I believe. And Baumeister and his colleagues, they said there's a few things we can do to improve our willpower. So I just want to tell you exactly what those are, if that's okay, because you may be unreasonably holding yourself to this standard that you are supposed to have just this endless well of will. And that's just not how our psychology and our physiology works. There's so many interesting studies that show that like people tend to make poorer decisions for themselves later in the day and particularly late at night. And it makes sense, right? Because your physical self is depleted. So I was nerding out with AI this morning and I said, so what do the experts say we should do if we want to improve our willpower? A few things. Number 1, rest and recovery. So how many of you think about your business all damn day long? It's like 24/7 you're thinking about it. You're thinking about it all weekend. You're thinking about it when you're working on it, and you're thinking about it when you're not working on it. How many of you know that you need to spend more time in the gym? You know that you need to take a little time to do your meal planning, that you could improve your nutrition, right? Yeah, guilty. I mean, all of us, right? And it's just useful to know that the number one thing to renew your willpower is to have active rest and recovery. Powerful. The second thing is intentionally activate positive emotions around things that you enjoy. So, for example, I like hanging out with my kids and I like cooking together. I like going for walks. I like listening to enjoyable music. Well, it's kind of interesting, but that actually improves my willpower for the things that I need to use my willpower for. So what are you doing to spark joy in your day-to-day life? It could be some of those different things. The third thing they said, and the thing that I really want to underscore, is instead of relying on willpower, what if you relied on systems? Systems! All right, so we're going to add systems to the mix. That's not how you spell systems. There we go. That's how you spell systems. Okay, so to be very honest with you, I didn't actually pick this topic today that we're talking about. I built a framework, which is a system, and then I designed out what the topics are going to be and what the main things I want to tell you are like weeks ago. And then I knew that like on the day, I was probably going to go to the gym, made it, and lifted some weights. Woo woo. Okay. I knew I was going to go to the gym. I knew that I was going to have family date night the night before. I knew I wasn't going to have like a ton of time to prepare for today. So I actually did the preparation at a time when I had high willpower that was like not right now. Right? Okay, so systems. And actually, that was a really good example of a system, Jenny. Thank you so much for asking that. How many of you have done or you've talked in front of people and then you now need to wait for the next speech, right? And you're always waiting for like that next opportunity to get onto a stage. Well, guess what? We're going to take this video, and this video is going to go into our Clients Over Chaos community in full. And what I did, and I made this system adjustment a little while ago, is I'm actually simultaneously recording this very training in 3 different places. Shout out 3 in the chat if you're like, exclamation point, you know? So I'm recording on Riverside, which is my podcasting editing platform. I'm recording directly into the Clients Over Chaos communities. Like if somebody pops by the feed, they can just hop in there as well. And it means that when I'm done, I don't have to download this video and upload it again to Clients Over Chaos. It's already there. Nutty, right? Third big piece is I'm broadcasting live through Instagram. So what that does is that shows people on a different platform because people are hanging out on different places that like, oh yeah, Amanda does these live streams. The Instagram thing is kind of an ad for the Clients Over Chaos community. Is that making sense and tracking? Shout a Y in the chat as to like why I would be broadcasting on my phone at the same time that I'm actually doing the core episode. Then we take the Riverside. So the Riverside recording is the HD high quality one. We take the Riverside one, and Riverside has AI built into it where it automatically cleans up the episode, takes out a lot of the long breaks and the ums and the ahs, and it produces a episode. And then what we do is we take the video from that and it goes on to Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and we pull shorts. So Riverside also helps us pull short form video from the live stream. Okay. And then we take a scheduler, we use Plaza Plus, and we post the short form video to multiple different locations. We also use AI to help us to write a blog for our website and a LinkedIn article. Now, if that sounds like a lot, right? Shout a few in the chat if that does sound like a lot, because it is a lot. You know, we've got the long form, we've got the audio, we've got the blog, the article, we've got posts, we've got short form reels, we've got the long form video on multiple different platforms. But guess what that gives me? Who can guess what that gives me? Why would I want to have a system like that? The answer, my friend, is visibility. Visibility. So while one of my colleagues might go to one speech one time in front of a room of 50 people, I'm taking the same 30, 45-minute effort and I am propagating it across a lot of different channels that all lead towards the Clients Over Chaos free community. Where inside Clients Over Chaos, we have a daily spark, which is a short audio to motivate folks. And then they have the whole library of our past episodes. So what do you suppose happens when somebody makes it into the Clients Over Chaos community and sees all the past episodes? Right? Or maybe somebody stumbles across me on YouTube and they enjoyed the episode. What do you think happens next? Shout binge in the chat. They start spending some real time with me. So if a competitor is only going to live events, let's say they chose a couple of networking groups to be a part of, they get to speak once or twice a year, and then the rest of the time they're kind of mingling in the room, and they maybe make it 10 times that year into that room, the amount of exposure, like the potency of the exposure is really high, which is why I think it's a good idea to do the networking. It's probably one of the best ways to get started with your business. And then I would have a system to reinforce the relationship, right? So many people think that content is all about virality and being famous and all that kind of thing. I don't give a toot about being famous, quite frankly. What I care about is I want to help people to build a business that's actually sustainable and profitable. Because when I joined the online marketing, coaching kind of world, there were so many people who made such huge promises and then they did a terrible job of delivery. And I was just like offended. I did not like that. And so like my goal with content is to be more effective with teaching like what truly matters. My whole motto is do what matters. I've got it like tattooed on my arm. It's pretty important to me. And it's also really important to me that I don't have a really high push sales style. I don't like being really pushy and aggressive. It's not my style. It's not what I want to do. But the trade-off is that I need to have more content for people to come to terms on their own that maybe I might be somebody they want to work with. Is this tracking and making sense? Right? Shout a Y in the chat on the system. Now I'm going to give you the third piece that really makes the whole thing sing. And to be honest with you, the first few years I didn't do this third thing at all. But when I did, it was like putting rocket fuel on the rocket fuel. It was nuts. So the truth is that when I do these lives, I'm just pulling my iPad up. There we go. I am not the one doing the editing. I am not the one that is doing the posting. That is up to my dream team. So the third big part of this wheel that makes your action, your tracking, your belief sustainable is when you don't have to completely rely on your own personal willpower. When you can automate with systems and AI, I'll put systems and AI, and then use team to carry the load. So my dream team, I have mainly based in the Philippines. And the reason why is because they are very talented people and they have a different economy over in the Philippines. So I can afford to pay team members less than I would pay an American, but they still do really, really good work. And so, a few American dollars is like operating in tens in the Philippines, just roughly speaking. And so what we've done is we've built a team that supports each other, that is excited about the mission of the Coaches Plaza. And so when it comes to my actual time, I come here and hang out with you at 9 a.m. on a Monday. And then I'm done. I did my part because my team doesn't want to get in front of the camera, right? They're like, that's your destiny, Amanda. That's not necessarily what I want to do. And that's cool because, the things that they do want to do, I actually need help with. Can y'all track all of this? It's like, it's collaborative. And the thing is that they are fast, they are smart, they are hardworking, they are committed, they are loyal. It's been incredible to have team actually support. Now, I still probably do a little too much day to day because I can be a bit of a control freak. Is anybody else a little like that? Shout out CF in the chat if you're like, but I must be the one to do all the things. And the thing is in the beginning, you will probably end up working harder when you add team, because you've got to train the team, right? And you need to train the team not only in the processes that you follow, but also your preferences. And that was where I was like, ooh, I need to have patience in translating and transferring my preferences, because those are those little micro details that was causing me to just hang on to tasks and activities. And when I got better at communicating, hey, this is my standard, this is what I want to see happen, this is how I decide, I determine what good looks like. You know what I found out? My dream team wants to do a good job. So the better I got at actually communicating that, the less I needed to actually review the work because it was more often correct and to my standard, right? And so this middle part with your willpower, with your systems and automation, with your team supporting it, this is what builds a sustainable business. This is what does it. It's not having you be the superhero at the center that has like inhuman levels of willpower and consistency. It's also not required that you have to be a genius in absolutely everything. Like my team is way better at building automations than I am at this point. In the beginning, I was better, but I think they are now certifiably better. And they're better because they're more focused. They have less on their plate. They have more practice doing the thing over and over again because I have some clients that I help with running their systems, right? So now my team is specialized in being able to do certain things that they are legitimately better at it than I am. That's the goal. So how long did it take me to get here? Well, it took me about as long as deciding to believe that having help was going to be the thing that unlocked my next level, right? And it did take me time to come to that decision because I have a lot of beliefs about Amanda being the best one all the time for everything. And the truth of the matter is I'm not the best one for everything all the time. Sometimes I can make a better strategic decision. So like Annie wrote in the chat, strategy being the decision making we make about our personal time, about our resources, our money, and like the money that you're making in your business and your capability, your skill set. I've had clients that because we implemented a system for them, they never had to learn how to do the system, but the system still actually worked. Right? Now they had to learn how to like maintain it, but they didn't have to know, hook up this step to that step and, do all the technical pieces of it because we took care of that. It just works. And so, when you have really good systems that take a lot of the load off of your plate, that is how you're able to finally relax and do what you are meant to do. I was taught by a mentor years ago that it's super important to identify your genius zone. And, when you talk about genius zone in a lot of different, circles with business owners, they tend to say, okay, yeah, this is my genius. My genius is coaching, or my genius is I'm a visionary. And if you're the founder, if you're the CEO of your business, it's tempting. And I just want to make sure that we don't make this mistake. It's tempting to say, my strength is X, so I'm just going to do X. And that's a little like saying, my kids like chicken nuggets, so I'm only going to feed them chicken nuggets. Am I going to be raising a healthy kid if all they eat is chicken nuggets and I never give them broccoli, I never give them vegetables, and I never give them, other sources of protein? And like the truth is that you might be really good at one particular aspect of your business. And in the beginning, you might have to do all of it. But the goal really ought to be systemize it as quickly as possible. And once you've got it systemized, get it off your plate altogether and have other people manage and steward those processes. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm super glad to hear that. So everybody, like, give it up in the chat for people that are getting out there, sharing their wisdom, sharing what it is that they can do, because it's super, super helpful. This is Jenny. Good job. Yes. When you go and speak, I would suggest, even if you don't have a camera crew and you can't afford all of that kind of stuff, just turn on recording on your phone. And it doesn't even have to be video. Just getting the voice recording going while you're doing it, you can take the transcript from the voice recording and use that to inform a whole bunch of social media and other content later. So like, y'all, if you're doing the thing, record yourself, right? However you can, just record yourself so that you can benefit from that tool. Okay, my friends, so we went through the full Let's Launch formula, believe it or not. Actioning it, tracking it, believing it, and then powering it, right? Because when we add the power, that's when we get the real consistency and the discipline, right? So thank you so much for being here for this. If you're like, this is great, and I would like more support, I just want to go over really quick how I do that. I have a program called the Experts Network, and the Experts Network is a approach to implementing the system to reliably attract people who would like to work with you. And so when you have that system in place, it allows you to spin up the system and optimize it so that you can go faster and have more reliability in your business. So when people join the Experts Network, there's core curriculum that they go through. We do an onboarding call to make sure that you're focusing on the thing that is going to move the needle the most in your business. And then we have structured self-study curriculum where you go through step by step by step, depending on what stage you are at with your particular business. So if you're somebody who already has like 5 clients, you want to get to 10 clients, you might have a little bit of a different starting point than somebody who has no clients, but you want to get to 10 clients as soon as possible, right? So when you work with me, you not only get these established curriculums that people have followed and gotten really good results consistently from, you also get access to me as your coach. So we do high performance coaching every single week, and this is activating your leadership. This is activating your influence and being able to troubleshoot like where you might have some opportunity in how you're moving through your weeks. And we also have office hours every single week. So in office hours, that's where we can talk about the more specific challenges you might be having with implementing the system. And so that's a place to hot seat. That's a place to walk through it in a lot of detail. And then finally, we do co-working every single week. So co-working is an opportunity to just focus without as much distraction in a facilitated container. So when you're in the Experts Network, most people, they do it for about 6 months, at which point you can decide whether you want to continue with the coaching or whether you're good and you want to move on to other programs or whatever it is that you want to do. And if you're interested, you can just say the word expert, DM me at the Amanda Kaufman, or let me just pop it right here in the chat. Doot, doot. Okay, I just popped it in the chat. It's at my link in bio if you're watching me on Instagram. And just send me a message that says expert. And then from there, I have a brand new video that walks you through everything that's in the Experts Network. It screen shares, it gives you a demo, it shows you everything. And then if it's great for you, it gives you the next steps to apply for the program. I'm looking for a few more people to enroll before March 1st. So if this is something that's at all interesting to you, make sure you hit me up with experts in my DMs in Instagram, and I'll make sure to send that back to you. By the way, you're sending a message to me personally. I don't have any setters working in there. I do not delegate this to my VAs, because if you have any questions or anything like that, I want to be able to share some voice notes with you and make sure that you have everything you need to move forward. Okie dokie. Thank you so much for being here this week. We're going to be back with another strong start on Monday. Don't forget to tell your friends the best training on the internet for people being really activated, motivated for filling their coaching practice is right here in Clients Over Chaos. You can send them to next5clients.com. That's next5clients.com, and it'll redirect them to the community, and we will let them in and they can come check it out. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.